CEO found a little girl sitting alone in the blizzard. Mom said you're the only one who can help us. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a cold, unforgiving night as the blizzard raged outside. The snowflakes were thick and heavy, whipping across the streets in a violent dance. The wind howled, sending a chill deep into the bones of anyone unlucky enough to be caught outside. The streets were nearly empty, the normal hustle and bustle of the city stilled by the storm. Cars were abandoned on the side of the road, their drivers no doubt seeking shelter from the chaos. Amidst the howling storm, a lone figure was visible through the swirling white mist. A little girl, no older than 8, sat huddled in the corner of a street, her small body barely visible against the backdrop of snow. She was alone. Her face, red from the biting cold, was buried in her knees as she tried to shield herself from the fury of the storm. She was clutching a small, worn teddy bear, a gift perhaps from happier days. As the storm raged on, the girl's teeth chattered, and her breath came in shallow, panicked gasps. Her lips trembled, and her eyes were wide with fear. She had no idea what to do, no way of getting home, and no one to help her. She had been separated from her mother in the storm, and now she was alone. Her only thought was finding someone, anyone, to help her. She didn't know how much longer she could endure the cold. Meanwhile, just a few blocks away, a man was driving through the storm. Liam Parker, a successful CEO, was making his way home after a late business meeting. He had seen the reports of the blizzard on the news, but his mind had been preoccupied with work. He was used to running a tight schedule, never slowing down for anything, until now. As he turned a corner, he caught sight of something strange in the distance. A small figure, sitting alone on the sidewalk. Without thinking, he slammed on the brakes, his car skidding to a stop. His heart raced as he got out of the car and rushed toward the little girl. He called out to her, but the wind stole his words away. He knelt beside her, his jacket offering little warmth against the cold. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear. She was shaking uncontrollably, but she said nothing. "Hey, are you okay?" Liam asked, his voice soft but urgent. The girl's lips parted, and she managed to whisper, "Mom said you're the only one who can help us." Liam's heart skipped a beat. Those words, though spoken through chattering teeth, pierced through him. He had no idea what she meant, but something inside him clicked. "You're safe now. Let's get you out of here." He carefully helped her to her feet, wrapping his coat around her tiny shoulders as they made their way back to his car. But as Liam looked down at the little girl, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was no coincidence. He didn't know it yet, but this encounter would change his life in ways he couldn't even imagine. As Liam carefully helped the little girl into the warmth of his car, he couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that this was more than just a random encounter. The girl, still shivering, clutched her teddy bear tightly, her small hands trembling. Liam adjusted the heat in the car, hoping to offer her some comfort, but he couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. "Mom said you're the only one who can help us." His mind raced, trying to piece together the strange words. Who was this little girl, and what did she mean by that? He stole a quick glance at her as she sat quietly, her face pale, but her eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. It was as if she was searching for something in him, something he wasn't sure he could give. After a few minutes, the girl spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "My mom, she's sick. She needs help." Liam's heart tightened at the thought. It wasn't just about getting her out of the storm. There was more to this story. He needed to help her, but he had no idea what he was walking into. "Where is your mom?" he asked gently, keeping his eyes on the road as the snow continued to fall heavily around them. "She's at home," the girl replied, her voice barely audible. "She's really sick. We don't have money for a doctor." The words hit Liam like a wave, crashing over him. He had been surrounded by wealth and luxury all his life, and yet, here was a little girl, lost in a blizzard, asking for help because her mother couldn't afford basic medical care. The thought left him feeling helpless, angry even, at the injustice of it all. He pushed the thoughts aside and focused on getting them both to safety. The drive was long, with the snow making it difficult to see the road ahead. But finally, they reached the small house at the edge of town. It was tucked away behind a thicket of trees, the kind of place most people would overlook. Liam parked the car and got out, going around to open the door for the girl. "Come on," he said, offering his hand to help her out. She hesitated for a moment before taking it, her small fingers grasping his with a surprising strength. As they walked toward the house, Liam could see the dim light coming from inside. The door opened before they even reached it, and a woman appeared in the doorway. She looked worn out, her face pale and drawn, but when she saw her daughter, her eyes softened with relief. "Thank you," the woman whispered, her voice cracking. "Thank you for bringing her back." Liam nodded, but as he looked at the woman, something in the back of his mind clicked. There was something about her, something familiar, but he couldn't place it. He could see the desperation in her eyes, the kind of desperation he had only seen in people who were truly suffering. "Is there anything I can do to help?" he asked, his voice quieter now. The woman shook her head. "We just need a doctor," she said, her voice breaking. "But I don't have the money to pay for one. We're barely getting by." The weight of her words hung in the air, and Liam felt his heart heavy with the burden of their situation. Without a second thought, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. He dialed a number, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. "Get a doctor over here. Tell them it's urgent," he said. After a brief pause, the voice on the other end confirmed the call. As Liam hung up, he looked back at the woman and her daughter. "A doctor is on the way," he said, his voice firm. "Don't worry. You'll be all right." The woman blinked in surprise, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away, trying to stay strong. The little girl, who had been clinging to her teddy bear, finally let out a sigh of relief. "Thank you," the woman whispered again, this time more firmly. Liam smiled, but it was a smile laced with sorrow. He had done what he could, but deep down, he knew that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than he had anticipated. As the storm raged on outside, Liam stood in that small house, unsure of what his next move should be, but knowing that for the first time in a long while, he was beginning to understand what truly mattered. Ian had never imagined that one simple decision would lead him into a world so far removed from his own. After leaving the small house, he found himself deep in thought as he drove back to his penthouse. The snowstorm had finally started to let up, but the storm inside his mind raged on. He had done what he could, but something about the woman and her daughter stayed with him. The little girl's desperate eyes, the way her mother tried to hide her fear, they haunted him. When he arrived home, he barely noticed the lavish surroundings of his penthouse. His mind was preoccupied. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was meant to do more for them. Hours passed before he finally made up his mind. He grabbed his coat and headed out again. This time, however, he wasn't heading to a business meeting or to handle another deal. He was heading to the small house he had left hours earlier. The idea of going back wasn't a decision made lightly, but the more he thought about it, the more it felt like the right thing to do. By the time he arrived, the street was quieter, with only the distant hum of the wind left to mark the night. He parked a little farther down the road, not wanting to make his presence known immediately. Stepping out of the car, he made his way toward the house. The warm light from the window greeted him, and for a moment, he hesitated. But as he reached the door, he knocked softly. The woman answered the door with a look of surprise, though it quickly faded into gratitude when she saw who it was. "You're back," she said quietly, almost as if she didn't believe it. "I didn't know what else to do," Ian replied, his voice sincere. "I couldn't just leave you like that." She stepped aside to let him in. The air inside was warm, the flickering light of a small fireplace adding to the sense of comfort. Her daughter was asleep on the couch, curled up in a blanket, her teddy bear clutched tightly in her arms. The mother, though still exhausted, smiled softly at the sight of her daughter. "She finally got some rest," the woman said, her voice soft. "Thank you for everything. I never expected anyone to be this kind." Ian nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. "I've been thinking about what you said," he began. "About your situation. I want to help more." The woman looked at him, her eyes wide. "What do you mean?" Ian took a deep breath. "I want to help you get the medical care you need. I'm going to make sure you have everything you need to get better." She shook her head, the overwhelming kindness almost too much for her to process. I can't accept that. We're just a poor family. You don't owe us anything. I don't care about that, Ian said firmly. I can't stand to see people like you suffer because of something so simple. You deserve better. He paused, looking down at the little girl. You both do. The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away, not wanting to appear weak in front of him. You don't understand, she whispered. We've been on our own for so long. I never thought anyone would ever help us. Ian's heart broke at the words, but he knew this was his chance to do something real, something meaningful. He turned and walked toward the kitchen, opening the cupboard and pulling out a notebook. I'm going to make this right, he said softly. The woman watched him, her emotions overwhelming her, but she didn't say anything. As Ian jotted down a few notes, he couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. He had the resources, the power, and now he had the will to change the lives of the people in front of him. For the first time, he felt a connection, a genuine purpose. This wasn't just about charity. It was about giving people the chance they deserved. And with that, he made a promise to himself. He would not leave until he had made a difference for them. He would be the one to make sure they no longer had to struggle in silence. Ian spent the next few days making arrangements. The storm had passed, but the weight of the situation still hung heavy on him. He had contacted a private medical team, and they were scheduled to visit the woman and her daughter the following morning. Ian knew this was just the beginning. He couldn't stop thinking about how he had walked into their lives by chance, but now he felt a responsibility he hadn't expected. The more he thought about it, the more it seemed like fate had brought him there, at that exact moment, to make a difference. The house had been quiet for the past few days. The little girl, whose name he had learned was Sophie, had been resting, still clutching her beloved teddy bear. Her mother, Maria, had been trying to keep up with household chores, but the exhaustion was evident in her movements. Ian's visits had become more frequent. Each time, he offered what little comfort he could, but something inside him kept pushing him to do more. As he sat in his car outside the small house, he couldn't shake the feeling that something more needed to be done. He could offer them money. He could provide for their medical care, but it felt like they needed something deeper, something more permanent. That's when it hit him. He wasn't just here to solve a problem. He was here to be part of their lives. He had been alone for so long, focused solely on work, that he had forgotten what it was like to truly connect with people. This was his chance to make that connection. As he stepped out of the car, he knew exactly what he had to do. The sound of his footsteps on the snow crunched underfoot, and as he knocked on the door, Maria answered with a smile that lit up her tired face. Hey, I'm glad you came by, she said, stepping aside to let him in. Ian noticed Sophie was awake now, sitting up on the couch with her teddy bear still tightly in her arms. She looked up at him with wide eyes, as if trying to figure him out. How are you feeling today, Sophie? Ian asked, his voice warm. She smiled shyly and nodded. Better. Maria looked at Ian with a mix of gratitude and apprehension. I don't know how to thank you, she said quietly. Ian smiled, though his expression was thoughtful. There's no need to thank me. I just want to help you both. I was thinking about your situation, and I want to offer you something more. Maria looked at him, confused. What do you mean? Ian hesitated for a moment, choosing his words carefully. I want to help you with more than just a doctor's visit. I know you're struggling, and I've been thinking that maybe you could both use a fresh start. A place to live, a chance for Sophie to go to school. I can provide that. The words hung in the air for a moment. Maria's eyes widened, disbelief written across her face. You mean, move somewhere else? She asked softly. Ian nodded. I have a house that's empty. It's far from the city, but it's a place where you could have some peace, where you wouldn't have to worry so much. Maria's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she said nothing. She looked over at Sophie, who had already begun to smile at the thought of a new life. But I can't, Maria started, her voice shaking. I don't want to take more from you. Ian placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You're not taking anything from me. You're giving me a chance to do something that matters. I know this might seem too much to accept, but I want you both to have a life without worry, without fear. There was silence for a moment, before Maria finally nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered, her voice full of emotion. You don't know what this means to us. Ian felt a surge of warmth in his chest, a feeling he hadn't had in years. This was what he had been missing. It wasn't about the money or the resources. It was about being there for someone when they needed it most. As he looked at Maria and Sophie, he realized that helping them had given him more purpose than all the success he had achieved in his career. The drive for wealth, the endless meetings, it had all felt so empty until now. In helping them, he had finally found something real. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew that this moment, this decision to truly invest in their future, was the beginning of something much more significant. It wasn't just about helping them. It was about finding the meaning he had been searching for his whole life. Ian could feel the change in the air as the days went by. The house, once cold and quiet, now hummed with a new sense of life. Maria and Sophie had moved into the house he had offered them. At first, it had been a slow adjustment. The house was larger than they were used to, and Maria was hesitant to accept help. But slowly, she started to open up. Sophie had quickly made herself at home, the bright rooms now filled with the sound of her laughter. The mornings were filled with school preparations, and at night, Ian would find himself thinking about them, thinking about how their presence had shifted something deep within him. One evening, after a long day at work, Ian made his way over to the house. He had promised Maria he would check in, and something in him felt compelled to visit. As he drove, the familiar weight of the penthouse felt distant, almost irrelevant. When he arrived, Sophie was outside playing in the yard, her teddy bear in tow. She ran up to him, her face beaming with excitement. "Look, Mr. Ian, I made a snowman," she exclaimed, pointing to a small snowman that stood proudly in the yard, a crooked carrot for a nose. Ian couldn't help but laugh. "That's a good snowman, Sophie," he said, crouching down to her level. "You've got a real talent for this." Sophie smiled, a toothless grin spreading across her face. Maria appeared in the doorway, her eyes warm with gratitude. "I see Sophie's been busy," she said softly, her voice filled with a quiet kind of peace Ian hadn't heard in her before. It felt like the storm inside her had finally passed. "She's been teaching me all about snowmen," Ian joked, standing up and turning to Maria. "How are you doing? Is everything all right?" Maria nodded. "We're getting used to it," she said, her eyes flickering with something that resembled hope. "I've started looking for work. It's been a little hard, but it's better than it was before." Ian could see the determination in her eyes, and he was proud of her for it. "I know you're strong," he said gently, "and I'm here if you need anything." She smiled, the kind of smile that showed real warmth for the first time since they had met. "Thank you, Ian. You've given us more than I could ever repay." Ian hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "You don't have to repay me. That's not why I'm doing this. I just want you and Sophie to have a chance at a better life." Maria looked down for a moment, as if collecting her thoughts. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, more thoughtful. "I've been thinking about what you said, about giving us a chance." She paused, looking at Sophie, who was now rolling the snowball for the next part of her snowman. "I'm not used to relying on others. But I want to try, Ian. I want to try to give Sophie a better future." Ian smiled at her, the connection between them deepening in that moment. "You're already giving her that. Just by being here, by taking care of her, you're giving her everything she needs." They stood there for a moment, watching Sophie play in the snow. Ian felt a sense of peace wash over him. It was strange. He had come to help them, to provide what they needed, but now, he realized that in a way, they had given him something too. They had shown him what it meant to be truly connected, to care about something beyond work or money. As the sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow over the yard, Ian knew that this was only the beginning of something much more important than anything he had ever achieved in his career. He had found something real, something worth holding on to. Ian's life had taken a turn that he couldn't have predicted. Over the past few weeks, he had grown closer to Maria and Sophie, and it felt like they had become a part of his life in ways he hadn't imagined. The house, once empty and quiet, now echoed with the laughter of Sophie as she ran through the halls, her voice a constant reminder that he had made the right decision. But it wasn't just Sophie. Maria had started to show signs of healing, both emotionally and physically. Her confidence had grown, and she was now actively looking for work, determined to build a better life for herself and Sophie. Ian admired her strength. It had been a long time since he had seen someone fight so hard to make a life for themselves. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ian sat on the porch of the house, sipping his coffee. Maria had invited him to stay for dinner. and although he was still adjusting to his newfound role in their lives, he couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment. His phone buzzed in his pocket, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was a message from his assistant, reminding him about an important meeting the next morning. But as he glanced at the message, he felt a sudden sense of hesitation. The work he had always put first didn't seem so important anymore. For the first time in years, he felt torn between his responsibilities and something deeper, something that called to him more than the next business deal. He put the phone down, the decision feeling strangely freeing. He realized that he wanted to be there for Maria and Sophie, to watch them grow and thrive in this new life they were beginning to build. As the days went by, Ian found himself visiting more frequently. He would help Sophie with her schoolwork, and Maria would share stories about her past, about the struggles she had faced. Slowly, Ian learned more about her, and in return, she opened up to him in ways she hadn't before. One afternoon, after a long day of work, Ian decided to take Sophie to a nearby park. The weather was starting to warm up, and the two of them enjoyed the fresh air. They played on the swings, and Sophie laughed as Ian pushed her higher and higher, her joy contagious. As they sat on a bench afterward, catching their breath, Ian turned to her. "Sophie, I've been thinking about something," he began. "I want to help you more. I want to make sure you have everything you need to succeed, to go as far as you want to go." Sophie looked up at him, her eyes wide and curious. "What do you mean?" she asked. Ian smiled, his heart swelling with the emotions he had kept bottled up. "I want to make sure you get the best education, Sophie. I want you to have the chance to do whatever you dream of, without having to worry about anything." Sophie's face lit up with excitement, her cheeks flushed with happiness. "Do you really mean that?" she asked, her voice full of wonder. Ian nodded. "Yes, I do. You and your mom deserve it." Sophie ran up to him and hugged him tightly, her arms wrapped around him in a way that felt like she had known him for much longer than she had. Ian felt a rush of warmth fill him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. This was real. This connection, this bond, this was what he had been missing all along. That evening, Maria joined them for dinner, and the conversation flowed more easily than it ever had before. Ian felt like he was part of something meaningful, something that went beyond anything he had ever experienced in the corporate world. As they ate, Maria looked at Ian with a grateful smile. "You've done so much for us already," she said softly. "I don't know how to thank you enough." Ian reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. "You don't need to thank me," he said gently. "This is what family does for each other. And I'm here for you both, no matter what." Maria's eyes glistened with tears, but she smiled. "You've already given us everything we need." Ian nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle within him. The life he had been living before, the wealth and the status, had all felt empty. But now, with Maria and Sophie, he felt like he had found something far more valuable: true connection, true purpose. And for the first time, he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. Ian's life had taken an unexpected turn. His role in Maria and Sophie's life had deepened over the past few months, and he was starting to understand what it truly meant to care for someone beyond a surface level. He had always been surrounded by business deals and high-profile meetings, but nothing had ever felt as meaningful as his time with them. However, as much as he had given to them, there was something he had been holding back, something he needed to confront. It had been weeks since he offered them a new start, and they had begun to settle in. Sophie was thriving at school, and Maria had found part-time work at a local shop. She was more confident now, and Ian could see the change in her, the way she held herself, no longer burdened by the weight of her past struggles. Yet, despite everything that was going well, Ian had not told them the truth. He had been living with a secret, one that he had carried for years and kept hidden in the shadows of his own mind. He had to tell them, but he didn't know how. One evening, as the three of them sat around the dinner table, the weight of his unspoken words felt heavier than ever. The room was filled with laughter and light, Sophie excitedly telling Ian about her school project, while Maria looked on with a soft smile. But Ian could feel the tension in the air, an unspoken truth just waiting to be revealed. After dinner, as they cleared the table, Ian stood by the window, staring out at the horizon. Maria walked over to him, sensing something was off. "What's on your mind?" she asked, her voice gentle. Ian turned to face her, his heart pounding. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice shaking slightly. Maria's expression softened as she stepped closer. You can tell me anything, Ian. You know that. Ian took a deep breath. It's about my past, about why I am the way I am. I never really talked about it, but I think it's time I did. Maria didn't interrupt. She simply waited, giving him the space he needed. Ian continued. I've been so focused on my career, so consumed by the idea of success, that I lost sight of everything else. I was raised with the expectation that wealth and power were everything. But it wasn't always that way for me. My family was never close, and I lost both of my parents at a young age. I had to fend for myself, and that led me down a path where nothing mattered except the next deal, the next investment. I never gave anyone a chance to get close. He paused, looking down at his hands. When I met you and Sophie, it was like a light flickered on in my life. I realized that all the things I had been chasing, money, status, power, none of it was worth it if I didn't have people to share it with. But even now, I still struggle with opening up, with truly letting people in. And I'm sorry if I've kept some parts of myself hidden from you. There was a long silence as Maria processed his words. She placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle yet firm. Ian, you don't need to apologize for your past. I understand more than you know. We all have our baggage, our scars. But it's not what you've been through that matters. It's what you choose to do now. And you've chosen to be here for us. That means everything. Ian felt a wave of relief wash over him as he met Maria's eyes. You're right, he said quietly. And I want to keep choosing this. I want to keep being here, for both of you. Sophie came running into the room, her energy contagious as always. What's going on? She asked, looking between the two of them. Ian smiled, his heart full. Nothing, just talking, he replied. Maria joined them, and the three of them stood together, a quiet moment of connection between them. Ian realized then that this was his family now. It wasn't just about the house, the money, or the things he could give. It was about being there for each other, no matter the struggles, no matter the secrets. It was about choosing to love and care for the people who mattered most. And for the first time in his life, Ian knew he had made the right choice. Ian had never felt more at peace than he did in the weeks following their conversation. He was beginning to understand that the life he had once thought was everything, a life filled with power, money, and constant motion, was only a small part of what truly mattered. He had found something far more valuable in the small, quiet moments he now shared with Maria and Sophie. His days were no longer filled with endless meetings and business deals. Instead, he found himself enjoying simple things, spending time at the dinner table, helping Sophie with her schoolwork, and listening to Maria talk about her past and her dreams for the future. Slowly but surely, Ian was learning to let go of his old ways, embracing the life he had never imagined for himself. One afternoon, as they sat together on the porch enjoying a warm spring day, Ian noticed how much Sophie had grown in the short time they had known each other. She was no longer the shy, quiet girl who had been afraid to trust him. Now, she was confident, eager to learn, and always full of energy. She was excited about her future, and it filled Ian's heart with pride. Maria had blossomed as well. She had started working full-time at a local store, and Ian could see how much she had changed. She no longer carried the weight of uncertainty in her eyes. She was focused, determined, and ready to build a life for herself and Sophie. The two of them had come so far, and Ian was proud to have been a part of their journey. But there was still something Ian hadn't yet shared with them, something that had been weighing on his mind for days. He had made a promise to himself that he would be honest with them, that he would be fully present in their lives, but a part of him was still unsure. What if the truth changed everything? What if they saw him differently? That evening, after dinner, as the three of them sat together on the couch, Ian decided it was time. He couldn't hide anymore. He had to be open with them, no matter the cost. Maria, Sophie, Ian began, his voice steady but laced with vulnerability. There's something I haven't told you. I've been carrying it with me for a long time, and I think it's time I finally shared it with you. Maria looked at him with a soft, understanding expression, while Sophie, who was sitting next to Ian, tilted her head curiously. What is it, Ian? Maria asked gently. You know you can. Tell us anything. Ian took a deep breath and looked down at Sophie, then back at Maria. I've never been good at letting people in, he said slowly. My life has been all about control, all about making everything perfect on the outside. But I realized that I've been running from something. I've been running from love, from connection. I've been so focused on my success that I forgot what it means to truly be part of a family, to let someone in." He paused, feeling a lump form in his throat. "But when I met both of you, when I saw Sophie laughing and Maria working so hard, I realized something. What I've been missing all these years is what matters most. It's not the wealth or the career, it's the people you care about." Sophie, sensing the gravity of the moment, looked up at him with wide eyes. "Does that mean you're not leaving?" she asked quietly. Ian smiled softly and shook his head. "No, Sophie, I'm not leaving. I'm here to stay. I'm here for both of you, no matter what." Maria's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away, trying to keep her composure. "Thank you, Ian," she whispered. "You've already given us so much, more than we could ever have asked for." Ian felt a weight lift off his shoulders as he heard her words. He had been so afraid of their reaction, but now, in this moment, he felt an overwhelming sense of relief. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. "We've come a long way," Ian said, his voice filled with emotion. "And I promise, I'll keep doing everything I can to be a part of this family. To be here for you both." Sophie beamed at him, her face lighting up with the innocence only a child could have. "You're part of our family already," she said, her words simple but powerful. Ian nodded, feeling the truth of her words deep in his chest. This was the family he had been searching for, and now that he had found them, he would never let them go. Ian stood in the living room, watching Sophie and Maria laughing together as they played a board game. For the first time in a long while, he felt something that he had been missing all his life, a sense of belonging, of family. The warmth in the room, the joy on their faces, the quiet comfort of knowing that no matter what happened, they were together, it all felt like the real treasure. The house, once just a place to sleep, had become a home. It was filled with life, love, and laughter, things that Ian had never fully appreciated until now. He had come into their lives with the intention of helping, but he had received so much more in return. The weight that had once been heavy on his shoulders had started to lift. He had found a sense of purpose, something far beyond business deals and financial success. It was something deeper, something that couldn't be measured in numbers. As the evening wore on, Ian found himself outside on the porch, watching the stars twinkle in the clear night sky. The air was cool, but it felt refreshing, a contrast to the suffocating heat of his old life. He had come to realize that he didn't need all the material wealth he once thought he wanted. What he needed was this, the love and connection he shared with Maria and Sophie. They had changed him, and for that, he was grateful. The sound of the door opening behind him broke his thoughts. Maria stepped outside, joining him on the porch. "Everything okay?" she asked softly, standing beside him and looking out at the stars. Ian smiled, his heart full. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Everything's perfect." Maria looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "You know, Ian, I never thought this would be possible," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "That we could have a life like this. That we could have a chance." Ian turned to her, his expression serious yet warm. "You deserve it," he replied. "You both do." Maria smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek, but it was not one of sadness. It was a tear of relief, of joy, of hope. "I never thought I would find someone like you," she said softly. "You've given us so much more than we ever imagined." Ian reached out and gently wiped away her tear. "We've both given something to each other," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "We're a family now, and that's all that matters." As the two of them stood there in the stillness of the night, Ian knew this was the beginning of a new chapter for all of them. He had been searching for meaning, for a purpose, and now he had found it. It wasn't in the money he had accumulated or the career he had built. It was in the people he loved, in the family he had found. Sophie came outside then, running up to them with her bright smile and laughter. "Mom, Mr. Ian," she exclaimed, holding up her drawing. "I made something for you." She handed the drawing to Ian, and he looked at it, amazed by the innocence and love behind it. It was a picture of a house with 3 people inside, himself, Maria, and Sophie. The words, "Our family," were written at the top. Ian's heart swelled, and for the first time, he realized that he wasn't just part of their lives. He was a part of their story. A story of love, redemption, and hope. "It's perfect," Ian said, smiling at Sophie. "Thank you." As he looked at the drawing, he knew that this was the life he had always been meant to live. the life of love, family, and belonging. And no matter what the future held, he was ready to face it, knowing that he had found his home. The three of them stood together, a family forged through kindness, struggle, and unconditional love. And in that moment, Ian knew that this was the greatest success he had ever achieved. Discover a heartwarming tale in this millionaire story, where a successful CEO transforms his life after meeting a single mother and her daughter. In this touching journey, he goes from a life centered around wealth and business to realizing the true meaning of family and love. This millionaire story highlights how unexpected encounters can lead to life-changing decisions, as Ian finds himself not only helping Maria and Sophie, but also learning valuable lessons about compassion and connection. From offering a helping hand in times of struggle to becoming an integral part of their family, Ian's story is a powerful reminder that happiness is found in relationships, not riches. This millionaire story teaches us that the richest life is one filled with genuine human connections. Through acts of kindness and vulnerability, Ian discovers what truly matters: love, family, and a sense of belonging. As Sophie's smile and Maria's strength inspire Ian, this millionaire story continues to unfold, showing how helping others can lead to unexpected rewards. Join Ian, Maria, and Sophie in this touching millionaire story as they create a new chapter of their lives together, proving that wealth can't buy the most important thing in life: true connection and love.